No one is loyal forever. The words hang heavy cold as the frost that clings to Winterfell's ancient stones, sharp as the blade that severs oaths in the shadowed halls of power. Loyalty is a coin spent swiftly in the markets of ambition, traded for survival, for vengeance, for a fleeting taste of triumph. In Westeros, where the Game of Thrones is played with swords and whispers, loyalty is the first to bleed. Trust is the dagger that finds the heart. Look to the great houses, Stark, Lannister, Targaryen, Baratheon, and see their banners torn, their vows broken, their blood spilled. Every oath is a chain, and every chain will rust. The Iron Throne looms over all, a jagged relic forged from the swords of conquered kings, promising glory and delivering ruin. To sit upon it is to invite the gods' mockery, to grasp a crown that cuts deeper than any blade. The throne is not a prize, it is a curse, a trap for those who dare to dream of power. The wheel turns and none escape its grind. Ned Stark believed in honor. He carried it like a shield forged in the hearths of the north, polished by the silent gaze of the old gods. Honor was his guide, his duty, his doom, raised in the shadow of Winterfell's walls. Eddard Stark was a man of the north, his heart bound to its harsh truths. He fostered Theon. Greyjoy raised Jon Snow as his own and taught his children. Robb Sansa, Arya Bran Rickon, the value of loyalty and justice. When Robert Baratheon, his friend and king, called him to serve as hand, Ned rode south, leaving the safety of Winterfell for the viper's nest of King's Landing. He sought to steer a realm rotting under deceit to honor his friend's trust. Robert was a shadow of the warrior who won the throne, bloated with wine and regret. But Ned believed in duty. He uncovered the truth of Joffrey's birth, a bastard born of Cersei and Jaime Lannister, no true heir to Robert's line. The secret threatened the Lannister legacy, and Ned, ever honorable, confronted Cersei, offering mercy to her children. He believed truth would prevail, that righteousness would shield him from the serpents coiled in the capital. It did not. Littlefinger betrayed him, turning Ned's allies with a smirk and a whisper. Cersei outmaneuvered him, her ambition, a blade honed by years of survival. Joffrey, petulant and cruel, ordered his death, and the executioner's blade found Ned's neck on the steps of Baelor's Sept. His head rolled in the dust, not because he was weak, but because he was noble. Honor was his noose, and King's Landing was his gallows. The North remembers, they say, but memory is a wound, not a weapon. Ned's death shattered his house. Robb marched to war. Sansa became a captive. Arya fled into the shadows. Bran and Rickon scattered. Winterfell burned its walls, echoing with loss. Yet Ned's honor kindled a spark in his heirs, a defiance that would outlive his name. Robb raised the banners, Sansa endured. Arya hunted Bran, saw beyond the mortal veil. The Starks endured, not because they were strong, but because they were true. Ned's legacy is not triumph, but tragedy, a lesson carved in stone. Righteousness is a luxury the powerful cannot afford. Honor kills, but it also kindles. The wheel turns and the North does not forget. Cersei Lannister loved with a ferocity that could shatter kingdoms. Her children, Joffrey, Myrcella Tommen, were her soul, her defiance, her claim to eternity. Love in her hands was not gentle, it was a wildfire, a poison, a crown of jagged gold. Born a Lannister, Cersei was raised in the shadow of Casterly Rock, her father, Tywin's golden daughter, yet he saw her as a tool for alliances, a bride to secure power. Cersei refused that fate. She loved Jaime, her twin, her mirror, with a passion that defied the gods. Their union bore 3 children, a secret that could topple their house if revealed. Cersei schemed to protect them, outwitting Robert Baratheon's spies, silencing his bastards, manipulating the court with her beauty and cunning. She endured Robert's drunken neglect, his infidelities, his indifference, all for the sake of her cubs. When Ned Stark uncovered her truth, she struck first, ensuring his silence with Littlefinger's betrayal. Joffrey's ascension to the throne was her triumph, but also her curse. His cruelty grew beyond her control, a mirror of her own. Ruthlessness turned venomous. At his wedding, the Purple Wedding, Olenna Tyrell's poison stole him, and Cersei's heart broke. Myrcella, sent to Dorne for an alliance, was poisoned by Ilaria Sand's vengeance, dying in Cersei's arms on a ship returning to King's Landing. Tommen, gentle and frail, sat on the throne, but could not bear its weight. Cersei's desperation led her to wildfire. She destroyed the Great Sept, killing Margaery Tyrell, the High Sparrow, and countless others. Tommen, learning of his wife's death, leapt from a window, his despair her final wound. Each loss carved a deeper scar. Each death fueled her rage. Cersei seized the Iron Throne, crowning herself queen, the first woman to claim it alone. But it was a pyre. Her allies dwindled. Jaime turned from her. The Tyrells betrayed her. Daenerys's dragons roared in the distance. She stood defiant as the Red Keep crumbled, Jaime at her side, their love a rebellion against fate. Cersei's revelation was not her crown, but her mirror. The mother she was, the monster she became. She loved fiercely, but love in Westeros is a blade that cuts both ways. Her ambition, her defiance, her wildfire. Heart burned bright, but they consumed her. The wheel turns, and love is a debt paid in blood and grief. Jon Snow bore a burden heavier than any crown, the truth of his blood. Aegon Targaryen, heir to a legacy of fire, yet he chose the ice of the Night's Watch. The brotherhood of bastards and broken men, raised as Ned Stark's son. He carried the shame of a bastard's name. His place at Winterfell's table always shadowed. Catelyn. Stark's coldness was a constant reminder of his place, yet Ned's honor shaped him. Jon learned duty, loyalty, and the weight of sacrifice. When he joined the Night's Watch, he swore to protect the realm, to stand against the dark beyond the Wall. His brothers were outcasts, thieves and murderers, but Jon saw purpose in their oath. Beyond the Wall, he met Ygritte, a wildling whose fire warmed his frozen heart. "You know nothing." Jon Snow, she teased, but her love taught him freedom, passion, and the cost of choice. Her death, pierced by an arrow in the battle for Castle Black, was his first scar, a wound that never healed. As Lord Commander Jon sought to unite the Watch and the wildlings against the White Walkers, a threat greater than any throne, but his brothers saw betrayal, not vision. They stabbed him in the snow, muttering for the Watch, and left him to die. Melisandre's fire brought him back, but resurrection was no gift. It was a weight. Jon fought on, reclaiming Winterfell in the Battle of the Bastards, facing Ramsay Bolton's cruelty with Sansa at his side. He rallied the living against the long night, standing against the Night King's endless cold. His alliance with Daenerys Targaryen. The Dragon Queen was forged in awe of her power and belief in her cause. He bent the knee, pledging the North to her, but her fire turned to madness. In King's Landing she burned the city, the innocent dying with the guilty. Jon saw the truth, a queen who would not break the wheel but turn it to ash. He drove a dagger into her heart, not for hate but for the realm they called him. Traitor, king, killer, oathbreaker. His reward was exile, sent back to the Wall, a soldier without a war. Bran and Sam revealed his birthright. Rhaegar Targaryen's son, the true heir. But it was a crown he never wanted. Jon's revelation was not his heritage, but his exile. To know who you are and lose all for it. That is the North's cruelest truth. The Wall does not protect. It isolates. He walked into the cold, leading the wildlings beyond his heart, heavy with duty's scars. The wheel turns, and duty is a chain that binds the soul. Daenerys Targaryen's fire was her birthright, but also her curse. Born on Dragonstone amidst a storm that tore ships asunder, she was the last of her line, a child of loss. Her father. Aerys, the Mad King, burned his enemies until Jaime Lannister's blade ended him. Her mother died birthing her. Her brother Rhaegar fell at the trident, and her surviving brother Viserys was a cruel shadow of their legacy. Exiled to Essos, Daenerys was sold by Viserys to Khal Drogo, a Dothraki warlord, for a promise of an army. She was a girl of 13, but her spirit was unbroken. She learned to love Drogo, to wield her beauty and will as weapons to command respect in a world that saw her as chattel. When Viserys' arrogance earned him a crown of molten gold, Daenerys shed no tears. When Drogo died, his Khalasar abandoned her, but she walked into his funeral pyre clutching dragon eggs and emerged unburnt mother to 3 dragons, Drogon, Rhaegal, Viserion. They were her children, her power, her destiny. In Astapor, she freed the Unsullied, turning their masters to ash. In Yunkai, she broke the chains of slaves, her dragons a symbol of liberation. In Meereen, she ruled as a queen, striving to build a world where the weak would not suffer. But ruling is not conquering, and Daenerys struggled. Her dragons grew wild, her allies, Jorah Mormont, Barristan, Selmy, Missandei, faced betrayal and death, and her heart wrestled with mercy and wrath. She banished Jorah for his past treachery, only to forgive him when his loyalty proved true. She crucified the masters, but their deaths birthed rebellion. Her vision was a world reborn, but her methods sowed chaos. When she sailed to Westeros, her birthright was the Iron Throne, her dream to break the wheel of tyranny. She allied with Jon Snow, fought the White Walkers, and lost Viserion to the Night King's spear. Her love for Jon, a spark in the cold, was tested by his true heritage. Aegon Targaryen, her nephew, a rival claim. Her advisors faltered, Tyrion's strategies failed, Varys betrayed her. Missandei died at Cersei's hands. In King's Landing, grief and rage unleashed her fire. Drogon's flames turned the city to ash, the innocent burning with the guilty. Her justice became a scourge, her mercy a mask for madness. The wheel did not break. It turned, crushing her beneath its weight. Daenerys' dream became a nightmare, her legacy a city of cinders. Jon's dagger ended her, but the truth cut deeper. The tyrant she swore to slay lived within her. She stood before the Iron Throne, her dragon's fire at her back, but it was her pyre. The wheel turns and fire consumes all, even the dreamer who sought to soar. Arya Stark walked a path of shadows, her heart a ledger of names. Vengeance was her prayer, her blade, her god. The Red Wedding stole her family. Robb's body desecrated Catelyn's throat, cut the Stark name broken. She was a girl of 11, but her grief was a woman's, her rage a wolf's. She fled King's Landing, a fugitive in a land of enemies, her only companion, a list. Joffrey, Cersei, Walder, Frey, the Hound. Each name was a vow, a promise to repay, blood with blood. She travelled with the Hound Sandor Clegane, her captor turned unlikely ally, learning the brutality of survival. At the Twins, she witnessed the Frey's betrayal, powerless as her brother and mother died. In Braavos, she sought the faceless men, masters of death who offered a new path. They demanded she become no one, shedding her name, her face, her past. She trained in darkness, learned to lie, to kill, to wear the faces of the dead. She blinded a man, poisoned a merchant, became a shadow. Yet no one is still someone. Martin Frey's betrayal, powerless as her brother and mother died. In Braavos, she sought the faceless men, masters of death who offered a new path. They demanded she become no one, shedding her name, her face, her past. She trained in darkness, learned to lie, to kill, to wear the faces of the dead. Yet Arya could not escape her wolf's blood. The Stark in her clawed at the chains of the House of Black and White. She returned to Westeros, a shadow with a purpose. At the Twins, she fed Walder Frey his sons, baked into a pie, and slit his throat, a grim echo of the Red Wedding. She crossed Cersei's name in the Red Keep, a faceless assassin in a world of chaos. Each kill fed her vengeance, but it hollowed her soul. The faces she wore were not just masks. They were pieces of herself, lost to the god of death. She spared the Hound, her enemy turned ally, and that choice was her first step back to humanity. In the long night, she struck the Night King, ending the White Walker's threat. But it was no triumph. Her list was complete, but her heart was not. She sailed west, leaving Westeros, a wanderer with no home. Her ship cut through the waves, but her heart was anchored in the north, in the family she could never reclaim. Arya's revelation was not freedom, but solitude. To slay your demons is to walk alone, a ghost among the living, forever marked by the blood you've spilled. The wheel turns, and vengeance is a fire that burns the hand that wields it. Sansa Stark learned to play the game where others fell. She began as a bird in a cage, dreaming of knights and songs, her heart full of tales of chivalry. She saw Joffrey as a golden prince, but King's Landing stripped her of innocence. His cruelty, ordering Ned's death, humiliating her, publicly taught her the cost of naivety. She was a pawn, betrothed to Joffrey, then married to Tyrion, her life dictated by others. Littlefinger, her rescuer, became her manipulator, teaching her the art of deceit. In the Vale, she learned to weave lies, to wield silence as a weapon. Her marriage to Ramsay Bolton was a crucible. His cruelty broke her body, but not her spirit. She escaped with Theon's help and returned to Winterfell, her home a ruin, reunited with Jon. She fought to reclaim the North, her cunning turning the tide in the Battle of the Bastards. She faced Littlefinger, her mentor and betrayer, and judged him with Arya's blade. Sansa's strength was not in swords, but in survival. She endured Joffrey's malice, Cersei's schemes, Ramsay's horrors, and emerged not broken, but forged. At Winterfell, she crowned herself queen in the North, not through conquest, but through resilience. Her court was no longer a cage, but a throne of her making. Sansa's revelation was not power, but clarity. The game is never fair, but it can be played. She learned to trust sparingly, to love, cautiously, to rule justly. The North bent the knee, not to a warrior, but to a survivor. The wheel turns, and survival is a crown won through scars. Tyrion Lannister was a dwarf in a world of giants, his wit sharper than any blade. Born a Lannister he was. Tywin's shame blamed for his mother's death in childbirth. His family despised him. Cersei's hatred, Tywin's disdain, yet he survived through cunning. He loved wine books and whores, but his heart sought meaning. In King's Landing, he served as Joffrey's hand, outmaneuvering Cersei and Peter Baelish to keep the city from collapse during the War of the Five Kings. He loved Shae, a prostitute who warmed his bed and heart, but her betrayal, testifying against him at his trial for Joffrey's murder, broke him. He killed Tywin, not for hate, but for truth, strangling Shae in the same night. Exiled to Essos, he met Daenerys, seeing in her a chance to build a better world. As her hand, he advised restraint, but her fire outgrew his counsel. Varys's betrayal, Missandei's death, and Daenerys' madness in King's Landing proved his strategies frail. He stood in the city's ashes. His wisdom, a light that could not pierce the dark Tyrion's journey, was a search for purpose in a world that mocked him. He served kings and queens, but found no loyalty. He loved, but lost. His revelation was not victory, but acceptance. The world is cruel, but wit is a spark that endures, fragile but unyielding. As hand to Bran, the broken king, he sought to rebuild, knowing the wheel would turn again. The wheel turns, and wisdom is a shield that bends but does not break. Tywin Lannister was a monument of ambition, his name a synonym for power. Born to a weakened house, he restored the Lannister legacy through ruthlessness. As a young man, he crushed the Reynes and Tarbecks, drowning their rebellion in blood. Their song, the Rains of Castamere, a warning to all. As hand to Aerys Targaryen, he governed with precision, but the Mad King's paranoia drove a wedge between them. Tywin resigned, biding his time. During Robert's rebellion, he sacked King's Landing, proving his loyalty to the new king, but his brutality, ordering the deaths of Rhaegar's children, stained his name. As patriarch, he forged alliances, married Cersei to Robert, and ruled from Casterly Rock's shadows. His children were his legacy, but also his unraveling. Cersei's recklessness defied his plans. Jaime's honor mocked his pragmatism. Tyrion's rebellion struck the fatal blow. Tywin returned as hand to Joffrey, stabilizing the realm during the War of the Five Kings. He orchestrated the Red Wedding, eliminating Robb Stark, and secured alliances with the Tyrells. His strength was control, but control is an illusion. Cersei's wildfire schemes, Jaime's defiance, and Tyrion's trial exposed cracks in his empire. When Tyrion found him on a privy, a crossbow in hand, Tywin's disdain, calling him no son, was his last mistake. The bolt ended his life, his legacy crumbling with his corpse. Tywin's revelation was not his power, but his failure. A dynasty built on fear dies with the feared. His children tore his house apart. Cersei's madness, Jaime's redemption, Tyrion's exile. The Lannister name, once golden, became a curse. The wheel turns, and ambition is a tower that falls under its own weight. Theon Greyjoy sought a name, but lost his soul. Raised as Ned Stark's ward, a hostage for Balon Greyjoy's rebellion. Theon was neither Stark nor Ironborn. He yearned for belonging, torn between the wolves who raised him and the krakens who birthed him. When Robb marched south, Theon joined him, a brother in arms, but Balon's call pulled him back to the Iron Islands. He betrayed Robb, seizing Winterfell to prove his worth. The act was his undoing. His men turned. The North resisted, and Ramsay Bolton captured him. Ramsay broke, Theon flaying his skin, his mind, his identity, turning him into reek, a whimpering shadow. He lived in terror, his pride stripped, his fingers cut away. Yet in his ruin, Theon found redemption. He saved Sansa, risking death to free her from Ramsay's cruelty. At Winterfell, he faced the Ironborn, protecting Bran from the Night King's wights, dying as a Stark in spirit. Theon's journey was a quest for identity, a struggle to reconcile his blood and his heart. He betrayed those who loved him, but returned to save them. His revelation was not freedom, but belonging. To be a Greyjoy and a Stark is to carry both, even at the cost of self. The Iron Islands forgot him, but Winterfell remembered. The wheel turns, and identity is a debt paid in pain. Stannis Baratheon was duty incarnate, a man of iron forged by necessity. The middle brother overshadowed by Robert's charisma and Renly's charm, Stannis was a soldier, not a king. When Robert died, Stannis claimed the Iron Throne, believing it his right as the true heir. He was no dreamer. His claim was law, his resolve unyielding. Melisandre, the Red Priestess, saw him as Azor Ahai. The prince promised to save the world. Her visions fueled his ambition, but her fire demanded sacrifice. Stannis burned his bannermen, his kin, even his daughter Shireen, to appease the Lord of Light. His faith was his strength, but also his ruin. At Blackwater, his fleet burned, Tyrion's wildfire thwarting his siege of King's Landing. In the north, he marched on Winterfell, seeking to rally the houses against the Boltons. But his army faltered. His wife, Selyse, hanged herself, and his men deserted after Shireen's death. Brienne of Tarth, loyal to Renly, struck him down in the snow, his duty unfulfilled. Stannis' revelation was not his crown, but his blindness. Duty without mercy is a chain that strangles the soul. He sought to save the realm, but lost his humanity. The Baratheon line ended with him. His legacy, a warning. The wheel turns, and faith is a fire that burns the faithful. The Red Wedding was a scar on the soul of Westeros. Robb Stark. The young wolf was a king forged in victory. He won battles, rallied the North, and defied the Lannisters. But love and trust were his downfall. He married Talisa, breaking his vow to wed a Frey, earning Walder Frey's wrath. At the Twins, he sought to mend the alliance, trusting Guest right to protect him. The Freys and Boltons betrayed him, turning a feast into a slaughter. Rose Bolton stabbed Robb Walder's men, cut Catelyn's throat, and the Stark bannerman fell. Robb's body was desecrated, his wolf's head sewn to his corpse. The North wept. Its king lost its hope, shattered. Tywin orchestrated the massacre, proving his ruthlessness, but the act sowed vengeance. Arya returned years later, poisoning the Freys, her blade a reckoning for her family. The Red Wedding was not just a betrayal. It was a lesson. Trust is a blade turned inward, and no vow is sacred in the Game of Thrones. The North remembered, and the Freys paid, but the wound remained. The Starks rose again, but the cost was a generation's blood. The wheel turns, and betrayal is a debt paid in screams. The Long Night was a war against death itself. The White Walkers, led by the Night King, marched south, their whites an endless tide of cold. Jon Snow rallied the living Northmen wildlings, Daenerys unsullied, and Dothraki the Knights of the Vale. Winterfell stood as the last bastion, its walls battered by the dead Daenerys, brought her dragons burning the Whites. But Viserion, reanimated by the Night King, turned fire against them. Theon protected Bran, dying for redemption. Arya struck the Night King her dagger, ending the threat. A girl of shadows saving the world. Yet victory was no triumph. The living broke Daenerys' losses, fueled her madness. Jon's alliances frayed. Sansa's trust in outsiders waned. The Iron Throne loomed larger than the darkness they defeated. The long night was not about hope, but cost to fight. Death is to lose pieces of the living, and no battle leaves the soul intact. The dead fell, but the living carried their scars. Winterfell stood, but its hearth was colder. The wheel turns, and survival is a victory that tastes of ash. The Battle of the Bastards was a crucible of vengeance and redemption. Jon Snow faced Ramsay Bolton, the usurper of Winterfell. The monster who broke Sansa Ramsay held Rickon Stark, taunting Jon with his brother's life. He loosed Rickon to run, only to shoot him down, a cruel game, to lure Jon into a trap. Jon charged his outnumbered forces, overwhelmed by Ramsay's phalanx. The battle was chaos. Men crushed blood, soaking the snow, hope fading. Sansa's cunning turned the tide, her alliance with Littlefinger bringing the Knights of the Vale. They smashed Ramsay's lines and Jon reclaimed Winterfell. Ramsay fled, but Sansa fed him to his own hounds, his cruelty, his undoing. The victory was Pyrrhic. Rickon dead, thousands slain, the north scarred. Jon was named king in the north, but the crown was heavy. Sansa's silence hid her distrust, a rift that would grow. The battle was not glory, but sacrifice to reclaim. What is yours is to pay in blood and grief. Winterfell rose again, but its walls held ghosts. The wheel turns and victory is a crown of thorns. The Purple Wedding was a dance of poison and ambition. Joffrey Baratheon, king and tyrant, wed Margaery Tyrell, a union to secure the Tyrells' wealth. The feast was grand, but Joffrey's cruelty soured it, humiliating Tyrion, mocking Sansa, reveling in power. Olenna Tyrell. Margaery's grandmother saw a threat in Joffrey's malice. She conspired with Littlefinger, slipping poison into Joffrey's wine. He choked, his face purple, his arrogance silenced. The court reeled. Cersei accused Tyrion. Sansa fled with Littlefinger, and chaos erupted. The Purple Wedding was not justice, but calculation. Olenna protected her house. Littlefinger sowed discord. Joffrey's death freed Margaery, but trapped Tyrion, setting the realm ablaze. The Tyrells gained influence, but their victory was fleeting. Cersei's wildfire later claimed Margaery. The lesson was not retribution, but consequence. Cruelty breeds enemies, and poison is a subtle blade. The wheel turns, and ambition is a cup that poisons the drinker. The Fall of Dawn was a tale of vengeance gone awry. Oberyn Martell sought justice for his sister, Elia, raped and murdered by Gregor Clegane during Robert's rebellion. As Tyrion's champion in a trial by combat, Oberyn faced the mountain, his spear swift, his rage righteous. He wounded Clegane, but arrogance led to his doom. Gregor crushed his skull, a brutal end. Ellaria Sand, Oberyn's lover, swore revenge. She poisoned Myrcella, Cersei's daughter, and seized Dawn, killing Prince Doran and his son Trystane. Her coup was bold but reckless. Cersei's allies struck back, capturing Ellaria and her daughter Tiene. Cersei poisoned Tiene, forcing Ellaria to watch her die, a mirror of Cersei's loss. Dawn's rebellion crumbled, its leaders dead, its power broken. The fall of Dawn was not triumph, but tragedy. Vengeance begets vengeance, and the cycle spares none. Oberyn's flare, Ellaria's rage, Doran's caution, all led to ruin. The wheel turns, and revenge is a fire that consumes its own kindling. Prophecy is a double-edged sword. Melisandre saw visions in the flames, proclaiming Stannis the prince to save the world. She burned men and children, believing the Lord of Light's will, but fire lies, and her prince was a shadow. Stannis fell, his daughter's death for naught. Rhaegar, Targaryen, chased prophecy, believing himself the father of the promised saviour. His love for Lyanna Stark sparked Robert's rebellion, tearing Westeros apart. His son, Jon Snow, was the true heir, but prophecy brought him exile, not a throne. Bran's visions granted by the three-eyed raven made him king, but at the cost of his humanity, his soul tethered to weirwoods. Prophecy does not guide it, ensnares. It offers hope, but demands sacrifice, leading dreamers to ruin the Red Woman's faith, Rhaegar's love, Bran's sight, all bent to prophecy's weight, none unscathed. The wheel turns, and prophecy is a chain forged by hope and fear. Faith is a chain we forge ourselves. The seven promise order, but their seps burn. Cersei's wildfire proved their frailty. The Lord of Light offers power, but demands blood. Melisandre's fires consumed Shireen, yet failed Stannis. The old gods whisper through weirwoods, but offer no salvation. Bran's visions brought knowledge, not comfort. The sparrows led by the High Sparrow preached humility, but their zeal toppled kings and queens, only to perish in flames. Faith is a crutch for the desperate, a blade for the zealous. Stannis burned his daughter, believing it divine will, but lost his soul. Cersei defied the gods, but found no peace. Bran embraced the old gods, but became a stranger to his kin. Faith's revelation is not divine, but human. We worship what we fear, and fear what we cannot control. The wheel turns, and faith is a fire that burns the faithful. Knighthood is a lie wrapped in armor. Jaime Lannister wore the white cloak sworn to protect, but slew Aerys, earning the name Kingslayer. His love for Cersei was his truth, but also his shame. He sought redemption, fighting the dead, loving Brienne, but returned to Cersei, dying in her arms. Brienne of Tarth chased the ideal, her honor purer than any knight's. Yet the world mocked her. She protected Sansa, avenged Renly, and earned her place. But her heart broke for Jaime. Sandor Clegane spat on knighthood, his cynicism a shield, yet he saved Arya and faced his brother Gregor, dying to end their feud. Knighthood promises glory, but delivers blood. Its truth is not in oaths, but in choices. Jaime's betrayal, Brienne's loyalty, Sandor's sacrifice. The wheel turns, and honor is a blade that cuts both ways. Sacrifice is the price of survival. Catelyn Stark begged for Robb's life at the Red Wedding, offering herself, but her pleas were ignored. Davos. Seaworth defied Stannis to save Gilly's child, choosing humanity over duty. Daenerys sacrificed her dragons, her allies, her heart to claim the throne, only to lose herself. Jon killed Daenerys, sacrificing love for the realm, earning exile. Sacrifice is not noble. It is necessary. It strips what is precious, leaving only the will to endure. Theon died for Bran. Sansa endured for the North. Tyrion betrayed Varys for a chance at peace. The lesson is not redemption, but resilience. To sacrifice is to carve your path through pain. The wheel turns, and sacrifice is a debt paid to the living. Rebellion is a spark that burns bright and fades. Robert's rebellion toppled the Targaryens, but left a fractured realm. Robert's rule was joyless, his throne a burden. Robb's war freed the North, but ended in blood. The Red Wedding, his price. Daenerys' rebellion broke chains in Essos, but forged new ones in Westeros, her fire turning to tyranny. The Ironborn, led by Balon and Euron Greyjoy, defied the mainland, but their fleets sank, their dreams drowned. Rebellion promises freedom, but delivers chaos. Its truth is not victory, but cost to rebel is to challenge the wheel. But the wheel always turns. Rhaegar, Robb, Daenerys, each rose, each fell their graves, a testament to defiance's price. The wheel turns, and rebellion is a fire that consumes its own kindling. The wheel turns, and none escape it. Kings rise and fall, heroes bleed, villains triumph, the innocent suffer. The Iron Throne is not the prize, it is the judge. It weighs the soul, measures the heart, and finds all wanting. Ned's honor was his truth, but it killed him. Cersei's love was her fire, but it consumed her. Jon's duty was his chain, but it freed him. Daenerys' dream was her crown, but it broke her. Arya's vengeance was her prayer, but it hollowed her. Sansa's survival was her crown, but it scarred her. Tyrion's wit was his shield, but it could not save him. Tywin's ambition was his monument, but it crumbled. Theon's identity was his quest, but it cost his soul. Stannis' duty was his law, but it blinded him. The throne does not choose the worthy, it reveals the flawed. Every ruler falls not because they are weak, but because they are human. The Game of Thrones is a mirror showing us who we are, flawed, frail, fierce, fleeting. To play is to face that truth, to see the shadow on the wall and know it is your own. What is the revelation? Not victory, for all victors fall. Not justice, for the gods are silent. Not love, for love is a spark in a storm. The revelation is the mirror. The Iron Throne's price is not death, it is clarity. And clarity cuts deeper than any sword. Ned saw his honour's cost. Cersei, her love's ruin. Jon, his duty's exile. Daenerys, her dream's madness. Each faced their truth and none were spared. The wheel turns and the mirror never lies. To rule is to see yourself noble and broken, righteous and damned. The throne does not forgive, it reveals, and in that revelation all are equal. If these tales of power and ruin stir your soul, join us in the shadows of Westeros. Subscribe to our channel, ring the bell and share your thoughts below. Whose story cuts deepest, whose truth haunts you? Let's unravel the game together, for the night is dark and full of lessons.